Welcome back to Preparing for the Collapse Radio. We have a really fascinating discussion lined up for you today.
We really do. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, but before we even start, I want to say this right up front, looking directly at you listening to this right now. If you think long-term about preparedness, this podcast is for you.
Absolutely.
Because look, I've been noticing something lately that is just, well, it's unsettling, to be honest. I was at the local pharmacy last Tuesday, just trying to grab some absolute basics, standard cold medicine, some bandages, antiseptic.
Should only guess.
Empty. Entire sections were just completely bare. Blank shelves.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere right now.
Right. And when you pair that jagged edge of a broken supply chain with the wildly unpredictable spring weather patterns we've been having.
Okay, late freezes.
Yes, late freezes, sudden floods. It's completely scrambling agricultural supply chains across the entire country. And it just sort of hits you all at once. Like, we are literally one hiccup away from having zero access to instant store-bought remedies.
It's a very sobering reality to face. We've grown so incredibly accustomed to this just-in-time delivery system, right? We operate under this illusion that whatever we need it'll always be waiting for us under fluorescent lights.
Exactly. Just swipe a card and it's yours.
Right. But when those systems waver, even just slightly, it exposes this massive physiological and psychological vulnerability in our daily lives.
It really does. Which brings us to the core of what we're looking at today. We are focusing on a profoundly important PDF article by author Spirit Walker. It's titled Medicinal Herbs to Plant Right Now and Why They Matter.
It is such a phenomenal piece of writing. Spirit Walker manages to capture both the stark urgency of our times and at the same time the quiet, methodical piece of stepping away from total system dependence.
Yeah, our mission today is to explore exactly how you can reclaim that self-sufficiency, how to build an actual herbal first aid kit right in your own soil.
And it starts with a mindset shift, really.
It does. Spirit Walker moves us straight from that unreliability of modern supply chains into his core philosophy about timing and nature. He has this quote in the PDF that it stopped me in my tracks.
Which one?
He writes, "The ones who plant in spring don't panic in fall."
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is powerful.
Right. He frames spring not just as a season, but as an invitation.
Well, what's fascinating there is the psychological shift he's pointing toward. Most people view preparedness strictly through a lens of anxiety.
Pure panic.
Exactly. They wait until the storm is literally on the radar or the pharmacy shelves are totally bare and then they panic buy. But Spirit Walker is advocating for something entirely different here.
Proactive action.
Yes. He's saying that planting these herbs now, when the soil is ready and life is returning, it's a grounding act. It fundamentally changes your relationship with crisis.
I kept thinking about it like building a financial emergency fund. You don't wait until you're facing foreclosure to start saving your pennies,
That's a great way to look at it.
But I want to take that analogy even further. Relying entirely on synthetic medicine from the pharmacy, that's like relying on credit cards.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. It's a quick fix. It masks the immediate problem, but it comes with a massive physiological interest rate. You've got side effects, dependency, and the fact that you're totally reliant on a third party.
Exactly.
Growing your own herbal medicine, though, is like compound interest. You are building baseline bodily resilience over time so you don't get as sick in the first place. Plus, you own the capital.
That is the perfect extension of that analogy, and it really explains why this mindset shift is so crucial for people, because often we view medicinal herbs as a novelty.
Like a relaxing chamomile tea or something.
Something nice to have. But Spirit Walker forcefully argues they are foundational. They're your first aid, your immune support, and your calm in the chaos. This isn't just some modern wellness trend.
Not at all.
No, it's a return to the empirical ancestral knowledge that literally kept human beings alive for millennia before the pharmaceutical industry even existed.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual capital we are putting into the dirt. Spirit Walker outlines a specific botanical emergency fund. Basically, 7 survival herbs to plant right now.
Well, let's get into it.
Let's start with trauma and wound care, which is arguably the most critical category in a grid-down scenario. He lists yarrow and plantain.
2 absolute powerhouses.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here and ask you directly. I hear the history, I do. But if I'm bleeding out from a deep laceration and a true survival situation, I have a really hard time believing a weed I picked is going to save my life better than a modern tourniquet and a synthetic hemostatic agent like, say, Quick Clot.
And that is the exact skepticism a prepared mind should have. You shouldn't just blindly trust it. But let's actually look at the mechanism of the plant. Yarrow is legitimately a must-have survival herb, not just a historical novelty.
Okay, how so?
Well, its botanical name is Achillea millefolium, named after Achilles, because it was allegedly carried into the Trojan War to treat battlefield wounds.
Right, the myth.
But the science backs up the myth. In Spirit Walker's Guide, he notes yarrow is a powerful natural styptic.
Meaning it stops bleeding. Wait, how does it do that? Does it just like, physically plug the hole?
No, it acts chemically. Yarrow contains an alkaloid called echilene, which actively promotes blood coagulation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When applied to a bleeding wound, it triggers the blood's platelets to aggregate rapidly. And at the same time, it acts as a vasoconstrictor, shrinking the surrounding blood vessels to reduce flow.
Wow, okay.
Add to that its high concentration of volatile oils that act as broad-spectrum antibacterials.
Wait, so it prevents infection too?
Exactly. So you have a plant that doesn't just cover a wound like a synthetic bandage. It actively seals it, sanitizes it, and accelerates tissue repair.
Okay, that changes my perspective entirely. That isn't just a tea ingredient. That's a literal chemical intervention.
It really is.
And then there's plantain. And just to be super clear for you guys listening, we all know we aren't talking about the banana-like fruit here, right? We're talking about the broadleaf or lanceleaf weed that grows practically everywhere.
Right, Plantago major. It thrives in compacted soil, which is exactly why it's always in your driveway or along hiking trails. Spirit calls it one of the most overlooked healing plants on Earth.
Because of what it does for infections, right?
Exactly. Its primary function in a first aid context is its drawing power, its ability to pull out infections.
But wait, how does a mashed up leaf actually pull an infection or venom out of the skin? Is that like osmosis or something?
Spot on. It is a combination of osmotic pressure and active enzymes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when you crush or chew the leaf to create a poultice, you break the cell walls of the plant. That releases mucilage and a compound called allantoin.
Allantoin.
Yes, the mucilage creates an osmotic gradient that literally draws fluid, pus, and even venom from insect stings up toward the surface of the skin.
That is wild.
And meanwhile, the allantoin actively stimulates cell proliferation, forcing the skin to regenerate and heal the underlying tissue. So say you get a deep splinter that becomes infected and you don't have access to antibiotics. A plantain poultice can actually pull that infection out before it goes systemic.
That is incredible. The fact that an engine of cellular regeneration is just getting run over by our lawnmowers every weekend is, well, it's wild to think about.
We literally pave over our medicine.
We do. But, you know, stopping a physical bleed or infection is really only step one of survival. Because if you survive the physical trauma, but your mind completely unravels into panic, you're going to make a fatal mistake anyway.
That is so true.
Which brings us to Spirit Walker's next category, the nervous system and resilience. He highlights lemon balm and Tulsi, which is also known as holy basil.
This is a connection that preppers often miss entirely. Mental health is a critical survival skill.
Oh, 100%.
Panic is the mind killer. It leads to poor decisions, accidents, adrenal exhaustion. And this is exactly where Tulsi comes in. It acts as an adaptogen.
I hear that word thrown around a lot in supplement marketing. What does an adaptogen actually do in a real survival context?
An adaptogen does exactly what the name implies. It helps your body adapt to stress by regulating the HPA axis,
What?
your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Gotcha.
When you are in a crisis, your body just floods with cortisol. Short term, that keeps you alive so you can run or fight. But long term, cortisol toxicity destroys your immune system and degrades cognitive function.
It just wears you down.
Exactly.
Sure.
Tulsi doesn't act as a stimulant or a sedative. It modulates. It brings a hyperactive nervous system down or a fatigued system up, balancing your neurochemistry so you can actually think clearly in a prolonged crisis.
Wow. And lemon balm.
Lemon balm is a direct nervine. It interacts with the GABA receptors in your brain, which, by the way, are the exact same receptors targeted by synthetic anti-anxiety medications to physically force the nervous system to calm down.
So it's like a natural brake pedal.
Exactly. When the world feels completely uncertain and you are running on pure adrenaline, lemon balm supports the one thing you need most to survive, which is sleep.
Sleep is the ultimate reset button. I mean, if you can't sleep, you can't survive, period.
Without a doubt.
So moving from trauma to the marathon of daily survival, Spirit Walker brings up everyday immunity. He mentions thyme, green onions, and mugwort.
Yes. Thyme is tiny but formidable. It contains thymol, a powerful antimicrobial compound that is incredibly effective for respiratory support.
So if you get a chest cold off-grid,
Right. If you are dealing with a damp, cold environment and feel a chest infection coming on, a steam inhalation of thyme physically breaks up mucus and kills pathogens right in the lungs.
that's amazing. And green onions, I mean, they seem almost too basic for a survivalist. Like, isn't that just a garnish?
That's the beauty of them. They are incredibly easy to regrow from kitchen scraps, providing a continuous loop of vital medicinal nutrients and sulfur compounds. It's a great reminder that food and medicine are often the exact same thing.
Very true. And then, of course, mugwort.
Yes.
Mugwort sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel.
It really does, but it is actually one of the oldest known ritual and healing plants. Physiologically, it is a bitter tonic,
Meaning what for digestion?
meaning it stimulates bile production to aid in the digestion of heavy, unfamiliar survival foods. But Spirit Walker also notes its historical use for menstrual support and dream enhancement.
Dream enhancement, really?
Yeah. It demonstrates how these plants were used to treat the entire human experience, not just the physical demands of digestion, but alongside the mental and spiritual processing of reality.
You know, seeing the sheer utility of these plants completely reframes what I consider survival gear. In fact, I was actually on the Nomadic Enterprises eBay store the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for a 2-pack of Baofeng multi-band ham radios and some heavy-duty 8-amp Makita replacement batteries for my tools. You know, just standard grid-down supply run stuff.
The usual prepper shopping list.
Exactly. But while I was browsing the goop, preparing for the collapse site inventory, I noticed they carry a massive selection of heirloom seeds.
They do.
I ended up looking at homegrown white sage seeds, Homestead 24 tomatoes, organic moringa seeds, which, by the way, is a ridiculously fast-growing superfood tree, and they even have bulk dried herbs if you want to stock your apothecary while your seeds actually germinate. It made me realize that seeds are just as vital as comms equipment.
Access to high-quality, non-GMO heirloom seeds is the absolute foundation. I mean, you cannot build self-sufficiency on compromised seeds.
But let's be realistic for a second here. I know what a lot of our listeners are thinking right now. They're saying, this is great, I understand the mechanisms, I want to grow yarrow and Tulsi, but I live in an apartment, or I don't have a massive homestead with 20 acres of land to till.
The classic roadblock.
Right. It's the I don't have land myth.
It is a totally pervasive myth, and author Spirit Walker addresses it head-on with his own life. If you look at his YouTube channel, there is a brilliant video titled The Nomad's Garden, Growing Food in Portable or Limited Spaces.
Oh, I've seen that one.
Spirit Walker doesn't just write about this, he actually lives a mobile, schooly lifestyle.
A schoolie being a converted school bus, for those who don't know.
Exactly, complete with a wood stove and very limited square footage. He travels through different climate zones, yet he maintains an active apothecary.
That's incredible.
If he can grow medicinal herbs and prep for the collapse while living on a moving bus, stationary land is not the barrier we assume it is. He writes in the PDF that you don't need perfect land. You can start with pots, grow bags, or just buckets on a balcony. What matters is the action of beginning.
That's why those fresh mung bean sprouting kits and the zesty bread and butter pickling kits on the Nomadic Enterprises store make so much sense to me now. You don't need a tractor to sprout mung beans on your kitchen counter for a massive nutrient boost. Even those large plastic flower pot boxes they sell are perfectly engineered for vegetable and herb planting on a tiny apartment patio. It completely democratizes preparedness.
And there is a deeper philosophical meaning here that Spirit Walker touches on too. Planting these seeds in a pot on your windowsill isn't just about yielding a crop. It is a quiet act of rebellion.
A rebellion against the system.
Right. As Spirit writes, every seed is a statement. When you cultivate your own medicine, you are looking at a fragile, highly dependent modern system and saying, I will not be fully dependent. You are reclaiming your sovereignty.
I will not be fully dependent. That is a powerful mantra. But having the seeds, the pots, and the tactical gear is really only half the equation, right? You have to know what to do with them.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a really fascinating debate. Spirit posted a community poll recently on YouTube. He asked his audience of preppers, homesteaders, and nomads a very pointed question. He asked, which matters more, long-term supplies or skills?
That is the ultimate survivalist dilemma right there. How did you interpret that?
Well, initially you want both. But if push comes to shove, supplies are just inert objects until you apply human ingenuity to them.
Very true.
It goes back to what I was looking at earlier. You can buy the 36-liter waterproof tactical backpacks, the radios, the batteries, and a vault full of heirloom seeds. But if you don't know the soil pH required for those seeds, or how to program the frequencies on that biofang, or how to sustain yourself when those Makita batteries finally die forever,
Then you aren't prepared.
exactly, you aren't prepared. You are just stockpiling future garbage.
That is an incredibly accurate assessment. You know, the dopamine hit of buying survival gear often gives people a false sense of security. Supplies eventually run out, they break down, or they get stolen. But knowledge compounds.
It stays with you.
Skills are weightless. They travel with you in your mind. They require no electricity, and they cannot be confiscated. Spirit Walker is providing the raw materials with the seeds, but he is emphatically stating that the skill of using them is what dictates survival.
And thankfully, Spirit Walker provides the roadmap for that knowledge too. For everyone listening, you really need to head over to the blogs on their site. The Bourbon Barrel Apothecary and Forgotten Wisdom blogs are absolute masterclasses in off-grid living knowledge.
They really are.
They bridge the gap between having the plant and actually using it.
They do, but taking the abstract concept of survival and breaking it down into daily practical applications. For instance, we discussed the mechanisms of yarrow and plantain earlier, but how do you actually extract those alkaloids and enzymes into a usable format?
Right, you can't just stare at the leaf.
Exactly. The blog has a fantastic article titled Pain Salves and Poultices. That is where you learn the actual skill of solvent extraction, using oils and waxes to turn a raw weed into a stable, shelf-ready medicinal salve.
And survival isn't just about triage and trauma care either. A huge part of long-term resilience is morale, and morale is almost always generated in the kitchen.
Oh, without a doubt.
The blogs focus heavily on mindful cooking and caloric efficiency. I was reading through the Amish chuckwagon chili casserole recipe, which is brilliant because it's designed around resourcefulness, utilizing shelf-stable and easily grown ingredients to maximize caloric output.
That's essential when calories are scarce.
Yeah, and then there's Aunt May's hearty vegetable stew. The quote on that post simply says, "Food made with love tastes better."
Which is physiologically true in a way. I mean, when you are preparing food that you grew yourself from seeds you nurtured, cooking it over a fire, using skills you've honed over time,
It just hits different.
it completely alters your relationship to consumption. It nourishes the body, sure, but it also fortifies the spirit in a way that highly processed, supply chain dependent food simply cannot. It grounds you in reality.
So bringing this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? Let's recap the core truth of Spirit Walker's philosophy. Preparedness is not about giving in to fear or hoarding supplies in a blind panic while the supply chain collapses around you.
No, not at all.
Preparedness is a lifestyle. It's about reclaiming your self-sufficiency, understanding the biological mechanisms of the world around you, and returning to a reciprocal relationship with the land. And that profound shift begins with putting a single seed in the dirt this spring.
It begins with accepting the invitation that spring is offering, rather than waiting for the eviction notice of a winter crisis.
Exactly. And if you are ready to take that next step, to move from just buying supplies to acquiring the skills that make those supplies actually matter, the Preparing for the Collapse book series by author Spirit Walker is currently on sale.
Highly recommend picking that up.
It comprehensively covers growing, foraging, and the exact methodologies for making natural medicine. It is an absolute must-have for your physical library because, let's face it, if the grid goes down, you cannot rely on cloud storage to download a survival manual. We've provided a direct link to purchase the series right down in the description.
And before we sign off today, I want to leave you with a final practical challenge to ponder.
Let's hear it.
Based on everything we've discussed today about the fragility of our pharmaceutical supply chains and the profound chemical power of ancestral medicine, if the pharmacy doors locked tomorrow and the electrical grid went dark, what is the one wild plant growing within walking distance of your front door right now that could help you? I encourage you to go outside today, look down at the dirt, bypass the manicured lawn, and identify just one local weed that might actually be forgotten medicine.
Think about those empty shelves we talked about at the beginning, the feeling of vulnerability when the system hiccups. Now imagine looking at your window, past the driveway, and seeing your pharmacy growing right there in the dirt, completely under your control, just waiting for you to learn how to use it. See you next time.